The Game Week 30 deadline is finally upon us, and for many of us, it's wildcard time. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and today I have not just one, but two wildcard drafts that I think are going to work really well for two separate chip strategies that definitely I would recommend for the rest of the season. I hope you guys are going to find this one very, very useful indeed. So just a quick bit of admin first. Hopefully most of you guys watched my video from yesterday where we did speak a lot about the rest of the season when the double and blank game weeks are likely to fall. But this is just a screenshot from that video just as a reference point so you can get a rough idea of what we're looking at. So we're looking at Arsenal, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace and Man City having a double game week in game week 33 and then blanking in game week 34, with Crystal Palace and Newcastle also having a double game week in 32. We also see a small possibility of a double game week for Brentford and Nottingham Forest in game week 33. Now, it's unlikely we'll get that confirmed before this deadline, so we're probably going to have to maybe make some assumptions for this video. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and go in and pick some wildcard teams that are a little bit flexible for the uncertainties, but mostly work off this 99% information, and that is Arsenal, Aston Villa, Man City, and of course Crystal Palace in 33 and 34. There is going to be more doubles later on in the season, but I think we will think about that a little bit later on with just one eye on it rather than our full focus. Focus on what's in front of us. So the first video with the first wildcard we're going to be talking about today is going to be all based around chip strategy 1. So if you guys have checked out yesterday's video, you will know about this already, but it basically involves wildcarding right now, triple captaining in game week 32 if you have it. You could also maybe use a assistant manager between game week 31 and 33 as well, but if not, game week 33 can be your bench boost, and game week 34 would be the free hit. This is going to be the most popular strategy. I think a lot of you guys are going to like this one, but just I still think it is worth you guys looking at the second strategy and second wildcard we're going to be talking about as well, particularly if you are looking to try and find an edge, because there are definitely some edges to be found. So let's have a look at this first wildcard team. So this wildcard is a little bit expensive. Maybe some of you guys can afford this one. Most of you probably can if you've been an active manager throughout the season, but if not, there is a very, very easy way to make this team a lot cheaper. So I will be talking about that later, of how you can make this a bit cheaper so it's more affordable for more people. But in goal, we are going to go for Raya for the Arsenal cover. Obviously, with an Arsenal double game week coming up very nicely, we need to maximize in this team the amount of double game week players we have for game week 33. So we are going to be looking at some Arsenal players, tripling up on Arsenal because they are such a strong defense in the Premier League. I think it's very, very easy that we're going to double up on the Arsenal defense, and I think that starts with Raya in goal. Going into the defense next, we are going to have that double up with Gabriel as another Arsenal defender here, taking through the next few fixtures. Arsenal defenders, pretty fixture proof. You can play them every week, and then we do have that double, but we're going to complement that with some other defenders. We've got Gvardiol, who obviously has the double game week in game week 33, which is going to be quite nice for him. The two fixtures, of course, for Man City will be against both Everton and Aston Villa for the double game week. That is what we are very, very strongly predicting. So a pretty decent double game week for them. And we know Gvardiol available, played in the FA Cup. So he is going to be good, hopefully nailed on to play through all of these fixtures. And we also have Daniel Munoz, who is definitely my favourite defensive asset from Crystal Palace, who has the double-double, 2 double game weeks in a row. And even if you don't expect Crystal Palace to keep clean sheets, and by the way, their defensive data has been very good, we know Daniel Munoz has a decent amount of attacking threat as well, and more games means more opportunities to get those attacking numbers up. We've got Southampton up next for Munoz as well, Leicester for Gvardiol. So actually these two complementary defenders to your Arsenal guys have really nice fixtures right now, and not too bad fixtures for game week 31 as well. Of course, after that, things do look very good for these guys, particularly with all of the double game weeks. Let's move on to midfield. We've got Salah in here. I don't think we need to speak about him too much because I think it's pretty obvious we're all going to have Salah in our wildcard teams for game week 30. But the next man is Bukayo Saka, who is now fit and available, has played a game behind closed doors for Arsenal. He has been in training for, I believe, 6 sessions now. So he should be fit and ready to go. Maybe a small risk for game week 30, but he's definitely a player I would like to include on a wildcard, a draft, and maybe you could have some bench cover for him if you are a bit nervous or, you know, you could also take another player for now and then look to transfer in Saka over the next couple of game weeks when you are more confident on his availability. So you kind of have a choice there. Do you want to risk on Saka right now, or do you want to have the bench cover, or, you know, use someone else for now and spend a transfer? So decisions to be made there, but I definitely think Saka will be very, very highly regarded when we're looking for those double game week 33 players. We know how good Saka is. Many of us may have forgotten, but he's basically an attacking return per game during this season so far. So really, really nice numbers. Of course, penalty taker as well. After that, we've got Ismail Assar. If you have a little bit more money, you could maybe go for Eze if you do prefer Eberechi Eze for your team. But for 5.7 million, I think Sarr is a very, very sensible choice for your FPL teams. He's been in great form recently with double-digit hauls in the last 2 game weeks in which he has played, also scoring in the FA Cup. So that form looks to be continuing. And finally, we've got Alanga in this team. Now, we mentioned earlier that there is a chance that Nottingham Forest do have a double game week in game week 33. And if you do wildcard right now, I think I would try and have at least one Forest player just in case that double ends up happening. Now, it's probably only a 25% chance that Forest will have the double game week in game week 33, but you're probably not going to have access to that information before the game week 30 deadline. So it's probably worth just, I don't know, I guess playing it safe, you know, hedging your bets a little bit on this one and just trying to cover yourself for the worst case scenario, particularly if you are not going to be wildcarding next week. You've got to do it now. That's completely fair enough. So maybe Alanga as cover could be quite nice. Up front, we have got Alexander Isak, first of all. Very obvious pick, you know, great form, great player with the double game week in game week 32 as well. So you've got a nice Newcastle player here. We are going to have some more Newcastle players. Don't worry, they are coming. Mateta, another really obvious choice. Southampton away and the double-double in game weeks 32 and 33. Hopefully he can get back to his usual best self after sustaining that ear injury in recent weeks. And finally, we've got Marmoush as the forward in the starting 11 here. Now, Haaland has picked up an injury. He is going to have a scan. We don't know how long he's going to be out for, but right now, I think we need to assume that Haaland is going to be out for a couple of weeks. Now, whether or not later you think Haaland should come into your team is maybe a different question. There are ways of doing that. But for now, I think Marmoush is good for the next couple of game weeks at least. And with Leicester at home up next, this could be a really nice haul, particularly with Marmoush going to be playing as the central striker for Man City. So really, really nice there. Going on to the bench, we have Nick Pope. For, I guess, defensive cover for Newcastle. Some people talking about Trippier, Livramento, Burn. They're all fine, but I think there are enough other good defenders that it might just be worth going for Pope as your Newcastle defensive guy. Don't really see too much upside in the other Newcastle defenders, and at least with Pope you do have access to those save points, which are very, very useful, particularly as Newcastle I don't think are a super strong defense. They are conceding shots at the moment. We've got Gordon here, who is currently suspended. He is going to be back next week, though, we think. So he's going to be back very soon. But, of course, you could swap him for Jacob Murphy as well. So it's difficult to say. I think if you're wildcarding in game week 31, you probably do include Gordon. So it's a case of, are you comfortable covering Gordon for a week or two? Or are you kind of needing to have a guy for right now? That is the question, because Gordon is, of course, suspended for game week 30. Maybe a little injury there as well. But he's probably a player you would want for the double game week 32. So it's kind of up to you. Would you prefer to have Murphy and have that guaranteed player, save a little bit of money? Or would you like Gordon, who is probably the better FPL asset of the two players, but not available right now? And particularly if you've got Saka in your team, it might be a little bit risky to have Gordon. So I'm not just making a team that is like, you have to pick every player in this team. I'm just kind of making some suggestions. And of course, these kind of teams can be modified to kind of suit your needs and what you like as an FPL manager. And the defenders here, we've got Nico Williams, again, for that Forest cover, just in case they do have their double. And we do have Ezri Konsa, who's going to be our only Aston Villa player, actually, for now, because we are going to talk about some transfers and some strategy building in in towards game week 33. But yeah, certainly Konsa is a nice, cheap Aston Villa defender that you can have in your team who does have that double game week. Also has Southampton away in game week 32 as well. So a decent option for that game week as well. So that is what the team is looking like. I would say captain on Salah, vice captain on Marmoush. That's probably the way I would go, but, you know, you could captain Marmoush if you want to go a little riskier, but I think it's between those two right now. So let's just have a look at this team week by week. So we're on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. If you want to check this out, of course, to help plan your team, then do use the link in the description. But I want to show you how this team kind of works week by week, which is this tool is really, really useful for. So, of course, going into game week 30, well, we know 30. Let's go to game week 31. And your team is probably going to look a little bit like this. Exactly the same as it was for game week 30. But going into game week 32, this is where things might change a little bit. You could consider maybe playing Konsa against Southampton, for example. You could play Elanga here as well if you felt that you wanted to. Not really sure where he would go, but it's nice cover to have. But then game week 33, we've got the double game weeks, triple double game weeks, of course. Pope is on here, Gordon is on here as well. So you got Isak, Gordon, Pope for the triple up, Munoz, Sarr, and Mateta for the triple up. So you have 6 players who have double game weeks. Probably going to captain Isak in that week. Potential triple captain opportunity if you do still have them. And moving on into game week 33. Team, again, looks really strong for this game week, but I think it actually can be improved. So if you're bench boosting in game week 33, you might actually consider making some transfers. Now, Gordon is probably a player I'd be willing to sacrifice, and we could maybe go for an Asensio or Rodgers or Rashford, basically an Aston Villa guy for the double game weeks. You get that extra double game week player, and you're going to have more transfers as well. So you could even make an additional transfer. You could make maybe Elanga, another another Aston Villa player, for example. You could maybe go, not Conso, Rodgers here for another Aston Villa guy, or you could do Pope to Martinez if you want to double up on the defense. Maybe not such a great idea for Aston Villa, or you could potentially do Isak to Watkins, but I'm not sure I like that as much, really, to be totally honest with you. So these are the kind of moves that you might be thinking about making for game week 33. Let's make those transfers and have a look at game week 33 now for the bench boost. Really, really nice and strong. However, when we go into game week 34 next, suddenly the team looks super, super weak. In fact, you'll only have 3 playing players if you made those transfers going into game week 34. Perfect time to play the free hit. So get your free hit played for that week. We're not going to cover which players exactly you choose on a free hit for blank game week 34, but we'll cover that nearer the time. But I'm sure you guys have some ideas already. Salah will probably be in that team, I can imagine. And game week 35, your team is back to having lots of playing players. So very useful indeed. And you can focus your final transfers throughout the season on targeting the doubles in game week 36, if there is any. And of course, the blank game week 37, again, if there is any. So this strategy works really well. This team looks really, really strong, in my opinion. I really, really like the look of this one. Let me know what you do think of it. But we do have a second team, which I think is just as good, but just follows a slightly different pathway. And there are some real advantages of going for this second team as well. So yeah, check this one out, guys. So this is strategy number 2. So this is going to be using a reverse strategy where instead of using our wildcard to cover the doubles, we're going to be using our wildcard to cover the blanks instead and free hitting during double game week 33. That will mean using a bench boost in 32. So it does give you a slightly weaker bench boost 32. But what it does do is give you a much more flexibility in your squad. If you're free hitting in 33, you can afford to get Salah. No, sorry, we can get Salah, Haaland, and Saka, all 3 into your team, which are obviously really expensive players. Haaland, if he is available by game week 33, you can bring them in suddenly for game week 33 and still have a balanced squad for all of the other game weeks. So it's not like you are committing too much money to a few players in your overall team, and therefore, you know, you're going to have much more freedom to do more things with your team. Also, because you're not focused so much on game week 33, since you will be free hitting there anyway, what you can do is really just pick any players that you want. If you want more Bournemouth players, if you want Bruno Fernandes, because these players have kind of been in good form recently, then you can pick them on your wildcard, no problem, because you don't have to focus as much on double game week players. So let me show you this team, and there are a few changes. So the goalkeepers and the forwards are exactly the same, but there are some differences in defense and midfield. So what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the Gabriel, the Gavardio, maybe some of those Forest players as well. And we're going to go for Konate and Kirkes as our primary defenders here. Obviously, good players, good fixtures. Liverpool, of course, being one of the best defenses in the Premier League as well. So this route is kind of taking a more Liverpool angle rather than an Arsenal angle, I suppose. And you could even include a third Liverpool player if you wanted to, if you had someone that you like the look of. In midfield, we've gone for Kluivert and Bruno instead of the likes of Elanga and Saka, which is really quite nice. I'm sure you guys will agree that these two picks are very, very nice, and you don't have to worry about the fact that they don't have a double in game week 33 because you're going to be free hitting on that week anyway. So this is a really, really nice way to do things, changing things up ever so slightly. On the bench here, we've got Cucurella and Dunk as the two defenders as well, and that's primarily because both of these players have good game week 32, because under this chip strategy, what you're going to be looking to do is bench boost in game week 32, but also making sure you have game week 34 completely covered with the players from your wildcard team, because it's game week 33 where you're going to be playing the free hit, which could be very, very useful indeed. So let's go week by week again. So here it is, guys, game week 30. Then we move on to game week 31. Your team will look a little bit like this. Again, pretty strong with Cucurella, hopefully getting some attacking returns there. But you could also go for Kirkes in your starting 11 for that game week if you would prefer to do things that way. Of course, you've got Salah as your captain. We've got those Newcastle guys as well against Leicester. Maybe Gordon if he is available, or, you know, you have Murphy there instead. You know, you could go for either one of these players, as we kind of mentioned earlier. Going into game week 32, you have got your triple Newcastle and your triple Crystal Palace once again. And you'll be looking to bench boost the likes of Raya, Kluivert, Dunk and Kirkes. So it's not as many double game week players for this week, but you would probably agree that these are still strong players, strong fixtures for the double game week, even if they are single game week players in game week 32. Raya and Arsenal's defence is always trustworthy. Kluivert has been in great form this season. Lewis Dunk has that great fixture against Leicester. If you want to go for a different Brighton defender, that would also work here. You know, Purvis is Stupinian if you're fancying something a bit spicier. And we've got Kirkes here, who's been super reliable for those attacking returns as well. So it's still a pretty decent bench boost, but it is less focus on double game week players because obviously there are less double game week fixtures in game week 32. But moving on into game week 33, this is where you are going to go ahead and hit the free hit button at this point, where you could just pick any players you want for your starting 11. Have Haaland if he's back, Salah, Saka, Gabriel, all of the big guys that you want in your team, all bring them in for this double game week, including those Crystal Palace players. And of course, if there's any injuries or anything like that, or changes of form between now and game week 33, and you can just change whatever to whatever free hit team you like. You can be far more reactive, I suppose, with your free hit team, because you won't be committing to your game week 33 players so early like you would do if you were using the other strategy. So you can go a little bit more reactive. You can pick the players who are in good form, looking good. If there's any injuries, you know, you don't have to worry about that because you're already sorted for a fresh new team for double game week 33. Of course, in game week 34, you will have 11 players ready for blank game week 34. But at this point, you can think about making some transfers here. Maybe we'll start to get some better hints towards game week 36 and 37. So maybe you could have that in mind when making transfers. And then going on into the final game weeks of the season, again, you'll just be looking to make some nice transfers and try and capitalize on whatever information that we have later on in the season, and using our transfers to deal with that. But game week 34, you should be hopefully covered with the initial wildcard team you set up, as well as any transfers you have. If you want to remove, you know, Marmoush, for example, at this moment, particularly if Haaland is back, then this would be a good time to do it, and maybe go for a different striker. Actually, we are actually, it's 10 players, isn't it? I forgot I made a change to this wildcard team before I started recording this. So yeah, you can remove Sarr or Marmoush, something like that, and bring in, I don't know, another player that looks pretty good for that game week. I'm not really sure who we've got for that week. We could go on and on. We could maybe go for a Semenyo or another Liverpool guy. But yeah, again, we could think about that nearer the time as we approach the game week 34 itself, because that is still quite some time away. But anyway, this is what that second strategy is like, and it would work something a little bit like that. The final question is whether you should actually wildcard now or not, because some people may have not committed to the decision, and maybe some of you have already made the decision, but maybe you just want to be reassured. Now, of course, the disadvantage of wildcarding in Game Week 30 is that you won't have some information. We won't know a lot of things for sure. We can make speculations. We can say, yeah, we're 90% sure this is going to happen, 25% sure this is going to happen, but we don't know anything for sure. And I think by Game Week 31, we will have far more information. However, if you've got a lot of these players, and this is what I'm calling an anti-wildcard team. So if you've got a lot of players in your pre-wildcard team, and your team has a few players from what you see on screen right now, then it could be a good indication that it is time to wildcard. If you have a lot of weaker players for Game Week 30 and you just need to get that wildcard done, you're just not happy with your team at all, then you may just have to pull the trigger, and that's that. And that's going to give you access to a lot of nice players for Game Week 30, and I think we can be flexible enough, particularly with Strategy 1, even Strategy 2. We could be flexible in both of these teams, whereby even if things don't go 100% the way we expected, we can make changes. If in Strategy 1, you have those Forest plays ready to go just in case. In Strategy 2, you're going to be free hitting in Game Week 33 anyway. So you can use your free hit to bring in Forest players and Brentford players as well, if they did suddenly double there. So there we go. That is what we'll be looking to do. Something a little bit like that. Two strategies. I like both of these teams. Hopefully you guys do too. But let me know what you think of them. If there's any changes that you would make, any players you think are essential, and how they would work into strategies. I know there's a lot of single game week players for Game Week 33 that I'm sure you guys would want, even if you are not free hitting in Game Week 33. So let me know, guys, of course. And definitely, guys, would seriously recommend checking out the full chip strategy video that I uploaded yesterday, because it gives a lot of really useful context when making your wildcard decisions. So go check that one out as well. But if you enjoyed this one, drop a like before you go. Do subscribe if you're new around here. We'll be back for a deadline stream this evening. So hopefully I will see a few of you there, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.